Hello everybody, welcome back. Welcome to episode 2. So today we're going to focus on the answers to the questions at the very end of the first chapter. See you later, Blue. And then we're going to read chapter 2 together. So if we have a look, question number 1 was, what point of view is this story being told in? And the answer to that was third person. A really good way of finding out which point of view it's being told from. If it was first person, we would have heard I from the narrator. But the person was talking about my father, and then it was from the father's point of view. So it's third person, using they, we, etc. rather than I. So who is narrating and who is this story about? It's a son telling a story about his father. You might have noticed a few times he says, my father spoke to the cat, etc. And the whole story is called My Father's Dragon, so that's a big clue, isn't it? And that person's called Elmer Elevator, which is quite a memorable name. Bit of alliteration there to help you remember. Question number 3. How did Elmer's mother feel about feeding the stray cat and why? Well, she didn't like it. And a big obvious piece of evidence was because she absolutely hates cats, especially if you were to feed a stray cat. She was worried that more would come round. And that's on page 11. You could find some evidence for that there. Then, question number 4, describe the alley cat. You may have used different adjectives like old. You might have put a good companion. Then also the cat can obviously talk. It's a female cat. And it's also quite a kind cat, isn't it? A very helpful cat. So, unlike my cat, which has just left me behind, you're not going to help me anymore. A really helpful one. So, let's move on to chapter 2. Please look at the link below. Chapter 2, My Father Runs Away. Wild Island is practically cut in two by a very wide and muddy river, continued the cat. This river begins near one end of the island and flows into the ocean at the other. Now, the animals there are very lazy, and they used to hate having to go all the way around the beginning of this river to get to the other side of the island. It made visiting inconvenient, and the mail deliveries slow, particularly during the Christmas rush. Crocodiles could have carried passengers and mails across the river, but crocodiles are very moody and not the least bit dependable and are always looking for something to eat. They don't care if the animals had to walk around the river, so that's just what the animals did for many years. But what does this have to do with airplanes? Asked my father, who thought the cat was taking an awfully long time to explain. Be patient, Elmer, said the cat, and she went on with the story. One day, about 4 months before I arrived on Wild Island, a baby dragon fell from a low-flying cloud onto the bank of the river. He was too young to fly very well, and, besides, he had bruised one wing quite badly, so he couldn't get back to his cloud. The animals found him soon afterwards, and everybody said, "Why, this is just exactly what we've needed all these years." They tied a big rope around his neck and waited for the wing to get well. This was going to end all of their crossing the river troubles. I've never seen a dragon, said my father. Did you see him? How big is he? Oh, yes, indeed, I saw the dragon. In fact, we became great friends, said the cat. I used to hide in the bushes and talk to him when nobody was around. He's not a very big dragon, about the size of a large black bear, although I imagine he's grown quite a bit since I left. He's got a long tail and yellow and blue stripes. His horn and eyes and the bottoms of his feet are bright red, and he has gold-coloured wings. Oh, how wonderful, said my father. What did the animals do with him when his wing got well? They started training him to carry passengers And even though he's just a baby dragon, they work him all day and all night too, sometimes. They make him carry loads that are much too heavy, and if he complains, they twist his wings and beat him. He's always tied to a stake on a rope, just long enough to get across the river. His only friends are the crocodiles, who say hello to him once a week, if they don't forget. Really, he's the most miserable animal I've ever come across. When I left, I promised I'd try to help him someday, although I couldn't see how. The rope around his neck is about the biggest, toughest rope you can imagine. With so many knots, it would take days to untie them all. Anyway, when you were talking about airplanes, you gave me a good idea. Now, I'm quite sure that if you were able to rescue the dragon, which wouldn't be the least bit easy, he'd let you ride him most anywhere, provided you were nice to him. Of course. How about trying it? Oh, I'd love to, said my father. And he was so angry at his mother for being rude to the cat that he didn't feel the least bit sad about running away from home for a while. That very afternoon, my father and the cat went down to the docks to see about ships going to the island of Tangerina. They found out that a ship would be sailing the next week, so right away they started planning for the rescue of the dragon. The cat was a great help in suggesting things for my father to take with him, and she told him everything she knew about Wild Island. Of course, she was too old to go along. Everything had to be kept very secret, so when they found or bought anything to take on the trip, they hid it behind a rock in the park. The night before my father sailed, he borrowed his father's knapsack, and he and the cat packed everything very carefully. He took chewing gum, 24 pink lollipops, a package of rubber bands, black rubber boots, a compass, a toothbrush, and a tube of toothpaste, 6 magnifying glasses, a very sharp jackknife, a comb, and a hairbrush, 7 hair ribbons of different colours, an empty grain bag with a label saying cranberry, some clean clothes, and enough food to last my father while he was on the ship. He couldn't live on mice, so he took 25 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and 6 apples, because that's all the apples he could find in the pantry. When everything was packed, my father and the cat went down to the docks to the ship. A night watchman was on duty, so while the cat made loud, strange noises to distract his attention, my father ran over the gangplank onto the ship. He went down into the hold and hid among some bags of wheat. The ship sailed early the next morning. And that is the end of chapter 2. So, here are our questions. Question number 1. What example of figurative language describes the cat speaking like a human? If something is figurative, it represents. So if you think of a figure of speech, there can be lots of different types of figurative language. Try to research some and then look for how the cat is speaking like a human. Question number 2. Why did the animals on the island want to catch the dragon? And finally, question number 3. How did the animals treat the baby dragon if he complains? So question number 1 I would say is the most challenging. Just for a little bit of support with that one, I would look closely on page number 15 and think about figurative language. It can either be a metaphor, it can sometimes be a simile, or alliteration. See which one you think it might be. Right, everybody, please remember the link below in the description does have a copy of the text. So that's going to be really useful when you're answering the questions. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you.